Hello and welcome back to another episode of Open Floor. I'm Andrew Sharp, and on the other line, Ben Golliver. What's up, man?
Not too much, Andrew. I got to admit right up front, I'm a little nervous because the whole Kevin Durant fake accounts, burner accounts, whatever you want to call it, fiasco, it happened like 3 days ago. And so you have this tendency, like when news hits, you're all over it. And if we catch it on the second day, then you're all about slamming the backlash. But if it goes 3 days, you're just out and you don't care anymore. And I'm worried that's what's going to happen because it's been like 3 days since the KD thing hit. I'm just worried you're going to be like, nah, man, it's not that big of a deal. You're going to try to pull that on me.
No, I'm not going to do that because this is one of the funniest things I can remember happening over the last like 4 or 5 years. And I also, I'm worried because you've texted me 3 times today saying, listen, man, I'm loaded up with KD takes. I'm ready. And whenever you do that, I get a little wary because I'm like, we don't need to like call out KD's soul over this. So that's number one. Number two, I want to apologize to any of the listeners because I think when we pre-recorded our last podcast, we had a lot of fun talking about our favorite games, but we did so thinking it's the middle of September. There's not going to be any basketball news next week. We might as well just like bank an episode and just because there's just nothing going on. Little did we know that there was going to be a KD catfishing scandal on Monday. And not only that, we had Kyrie following that up like 2 hours later, lecturing the world about reality. It was a fantastic day of basketball internet earlier this week, and I feel really guilty that we weren't around to sort of cover it in real time.
I mean, and on top of that, Lee Jenkins drops the Dwight Howard profile. So it was really like an armchair psychologist's, triple crown. You know, Kyrie's pouring out his convoluted soul to Max Kellerman. KD is having one of the most embarrassing moments probably of his life. And Dwight Howard's just being another day at Dwight Howard. But all three of those were pretty wild.
Another chapter. All right. Well, we've got probably more mailbag questions than we've ever gotten over the past week. So let's just jump into it right now. The first question is from Austin, and we're going to start with Durant. Austin says, can we please talk about KD's self-confidence levels? He's on an all-out mission to tell the world he doesn't give an F about the haters. Now he's out here with burner Twitter accounts. I wish I would have called this. His next insole should be quotes from him about himself. That'd actually be pretty good.
Well played. Well, look.
The floor is yours, Ben.
Well, here's the thing. I was actually going to say, do you want to go after him for not having any self-confidence before I get to the real issues? I mean, you're the guy who kind of likes to bully KD for being, a little bit sensitive, and you've tried to equate some of his off-court stuff to how he's going to play on court and how he's just a role player because he's not that prototypical alpha guy. And he did join up with a champion that really bothered you. It didn't really bother me, but I think there's a bigger issue here than KD's sensitivity.
Yes, and I'm going to cede the floor to you before I do my victory lap. So you're the one with takes loaded up in the chamber. Go for it.
The issue is not the weird social media accounts. It's not the multiple personality disorder referring to himself in the third person. It's none of that stuff. It's what he said about the Thunder and his former coach and his former organization and his former teammates. Everybody wants to say KD.
Hold on. That's the worst possible angle you could take on this story.
Well, dig in, because it's coming, and I have a lot more of it.
I'm so upset already. Okay, go ahead.
Captain accountability is here. Now, look, I have defended KD through thick and thin, through all sorts of misguided personal criticisms that you've thrown out there. However, it bothers me to no end that the defense of him over these last couple of days is he's just like everybody else. He's a human with human feelings, okay? I saw KD his rookie year at the trade deadline when the Seattle Supersonics are making all these moves. It's clear they're clearing the deck for him. Actively avoid throwing anyone or even the possibility of throwing anyone under the bus in an interview. I talked to him before a game and he gave me that look like, stop trying to throw trap questions at me. I'm not going to talk about being the main guy on this team. I'm not going to say anything that might be a slight towards former teammates or current teammates. KD has always known how the game is played. If you go back through his entire career, remember how mad he got when people were questioning about Scott Brooks at the All-Star weekend? That led to like a 2-day fight with the media because he was defending his teammates so thoroughly. Remember the press conference where he's going at Mark Cuban's throat about what he said about Russell Westbrook, calling Mark Cuban an idiot? Time and again, KD has tried to be that leadership guy. You can even go his off-the-court stuff. You know, who was there donating to the Red Cross immediately for tornado relief? Kevin Durant. He is not some 14-year-old who doesn't understand how the world works, who we need to give a break to. This is a grown man in his late 20s who's been in the NBA and under the spotlight for a decade. He knows what's acceptable. He knows what's not acceptable. And also, by the way, he's an aspiring Silicon Valley mogul with all sorts of ways to communicate messages. He's got his own YouTube channel. Not that anybody watches or listens, but he's got it. They put out a documentary. He's on high profile. Yes.
The YouTube documentary was low key probably the corniest moment of his summer, except that nobody watched it. But it's 30 minutes long, and it's just so awful. So continue.
Exactly. He's got that. He's got high-profile podcast guest appearances about 6 times a week, it feels like, throughout this entire summer. He's got that channel. He's got an unwavering local media in the Bay Area ready to write any angle he wants to write for him. I love a lot of those guys. Let's keep it real. They're not Woodward and Bernstein out to expose Kevin Durant. They're trying to put his stories out there. So he's got all these opportunities available to him. And if clearly there is unfinished business in his mind, he did not get the respect he thought he was going to for winning a title and winning a finals MVP. People like myself gave it to him because we care about the history of the sport and understand what he accomplished, how well he played in the finals. People like you and a lot of other people didn't give it to him because he didn't win their hearts and minds because of how the whole thing went down, leaving Oklahoma City to go to Golden State, right? So he's feeling unfulfilled. He's not happy. Instead of turning to any of these other mechanisms for getting his message out, he refers to himself in the third person accidentally on Twitter to go one agave at a time to try to convince people that he's actually a good guy. That is so, like, and here's the thing. He called it stupid. He called it idiotic or whatever else. It's something a lot worse than that. For the first time in his entire career, I am going to call Kevin Durant unprofessional. The way he conducted himself was unprofessional, unbecoming, unbecoming of a player of his talents. Hold on, I'm almost done.
You're taking this way too seriously.
No, I'm not. That's the thing. You always snipe on him for these things that don't matter. This matters because everything he ever said to those people in Oklahoma City before now looks like a lie. Everything he ever said in a locker room, because he's out here snake dissing them on his Twitter account thinking that he is anonymous. This is supposedly his real feelings, right? He said he couldn't sleep, he couldn't eat for 2 days. There's a reason why. He feels guilty because he's exposed. He put his real thoughts out there, and now he has to be judged for them, and he's been lying to everybody, including the media, and probably to himself for multiple years about what his real motivations were for leaving in Oklahoma City. It's just so, it's worse than disappointing for a player as talented as him, as skilled as he is, as good of a leader as he's been. It's just patently unprofessional. It reminds me almost of LeBron's.
I cannot believe how wounded you are right now.
No, I'm not wounded. I mean, I'm fine. Look, I enjoyed this summer. This is the funny part, Andrew. I enjoyed this summer because I got to take a victory lap. I mean, he punked you. Like, he was in the finals not looking like a role player, looking like arguably the best player on the court at times, going head-to-head against LeBron James, doing the kind of historical things I always wanted to see from him. It doesn't bother me whether other people respect that or not. Like, if you're going to continue to hate on him, it doesn't hurt me, but it does hurt him. And he's lashing out in weird, unprofessional ways. And there's no sorry that you can go to Billy Donovan and be like, sorry I threw you under the bus on Twitter because I didn't realize I was going to get caught. That's never going to work. This guy said sorry more often this summer than Beyonce and Bieber combined. Look what he said to India. Look what he said about Steph Curry. Now Billy Donovan.
The India thing.
This guy's a mess. He's got to get it together.
I forgot that he managed to turn India against him along the way this summer. Yeah, look, this summer has been the strangest victory tour of all time, probably in any sport. He spent the entire summer. I think what rubs me the wrong way with KD and the way some of this has been packaged by him and his media team is it's almost like anyone who still questions his decision has to get over themselves. And again, like, there are all kinds of legitimate reasons to think that what he did was kind of a bummer. And it doesn't have to be like a personal attack on him, but it just is a bummer for the sport and for people who care about basketball. But mainly, I am more struck by how personally you're taking this. And I just want to say that, like, to people who listen to this podcast over the course of the last year or two, we have a rhythm on this podcast where, like, every now and then I sort of go outside the box and share what could be described as like a hot take, and then you, like, jump all over me and go, oh, rah, rah, that's not true, that's not true. Yeah. And then, like, 4 or 5 months later, I'm proven correct.
No,
and I just want to say that my take on KD during the playoffs was that I don't think that basketball fans are going to look back and think of this as a cool thing and think of KD as a cool thing. There's not going to be like a LeBron situation where everybody sort of wakes up and it says, actually, this is great. I don't think that's going to happen with KD. And I just want to say that I'm not going to take I don't take the tweets that seriously. And I'm interested in whether you think he actually sent them, because he's getting a lot of credit for owning up to it. And it still sort of feels like it was a social media person screw up as opposed to him.
No, so I have a different explanation. First of all, I do think he sent them. And second of all, even if he didn't, it's his responsibility at this point. I mean, imagine the other dudes who are on his level of stardom being engaged in any of the nonsense little messes that he's been in. Now, granted, Draymond did flash himself to the entire world last year, so let's, like, not overlook that. But KD is a much bigger star than Draymond, right? LeBron does his share of weird things, but we do actually make something out of nothing with LeBron half the time just because it's funny. That's not what's happening here. Imagine you're Andre Robertson, you know? Imagine you're Steven Adams. Any of those guys, and this is what KD puts out about you. Imagine you're Sam Presti.
Hold on. I don't think any of those guys. None of those guys care, though.
They do. Enes Kanter's crying on Twitter. I mean, granted, that's just another day, but he clearly is personally hurt too. Look, you have a responsibility if you're a leader if you're going to say that kind of negativity, if you're going to put that kind of storyline out there about your organization, you better do it the right way. You better not snake tweet it under some third-person pseudonym, you know, and have it come out you've got some fake Instagram. I mean, any of this stuff, own your words, you know. And if I'm a Warriors role player, I'm looking at those tweets and saying, uh-oh, we better win 70 games next year. If I'm Patrick McCaw, I'm saying we better win 70. I better make every shot on a pass that he sends my way. Otherwise, he might snake tweet me next summer. You know?
Honestly, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. I don't think the Warriors players care in the slightest. And I think the Thunder players already had legitimate reasons to be pissed off at KD. And are like, this just goes in the file for them. And the file was already full as far as KD being kind of suspect.
I'm glad one of us understands the professionalism that's required of an NBA superstar.
No. All I want to say, though, is that KD's summer was super corny before this happened, and it's been heartening to see the rest of the world come over to my side on this one, because I was thinking about it today. Like, you're right. I had forgotten about the documentary, but he took the shots at Under Armour, which was just a strange look. And again, like, if it was Steph, if it were any other superstar but Steph, it would not have happened. And it's also kind of funny to think about, like, can you imagine Steph in people's mentions responding to people? Like, the amount of criticism that he takes and, like, passive-aggressive disrespect relative to Durant, who pretty much everybody all along has said KD is an amazing basketball player. And, like, that's I think, one of the things that is ironic about this is, like, it's hard to find someone as famous as Durant who has been as universally liked over the last, like, 10 years. And And still, he's like clearly the most insecure person in the sport.
Yeah, but there's a difference between liked and loved, and I think that's what's at the heart of this. I think that's what's driving this. And to me, I think when you have a player as talented or a person as talented as Kevin Durant, when there's this kind of repeated track record of blow-ups, the India thing, he goes all the way across the world and comes back and he's talking about monkeys in the streets. Come on, bro. Like, you got to be better than that. You know, like, of course people are going to respond negatively to that. Are you kidding me? You know, the next one with Steph, I mean, like, I compared Under Armour to cheese curds. I'm not going to go up to the governor of North Dakota and insult cheese curds on a nationwide podcast. I'm not dumb. And then you look at this with the Thunder. I mean, that was the biggest storyline for an entire year of why did he leave? And this is how he wants to put his true thoughts out. Of course they're going to be offended. It's crazy.
But
and so
everyone already knew that's why he left. The only thing that would have been interesting is if he had said why he really left, which is that he didn't want to play with Russ anymore. But beyond that, like everyone already inferred that he wasn't as impressed with the OKC supporting cast. Which, by the way, that OKC team was really good, and I think that has gotten lost in the narrative over the last 2 years.
You're preaching to the choir, because if I'm Steven Adams, I'm like, what are you talking about? You can't win a title with me? I was right there. That's what I'm saying. This is why these people should be offended, and it's why it's such an unprofessional, because it's inaccurate. It's not an accurate assessment. It's spoken from emotion, and he's pointing fingers in ways that he never has, and he's contradicting his own public statements. I mean, this guy has never said anything along those lines in that direct of a manner, and this is how it comes out. I mean, it's just blindsided. You know, it's like halfway to D'Angelo Russell videotaping your tryst. You know, I mean, it's not a good look. But I want to get back to what I was trying to say about this pattern of behavior. No, I mean, like, I'm just saying D'Angelo Russell went the full blindside on Nick Young by, you know, screwing up his relationship. KD's like halfway to that with these comments and these tweets. But in terms of like making you think twice about what is this guy's motivations are. But look, when you have this kind of pattern of behavior of weird things where he's taking shots at people and creating messes that don't need to be created, you have to look at the people around KD, right? We've known crazy, famous people forever. As long as there has been fame, there's been insecure, famous people with weird proclivities. I mean, we don't even need to go down the list of people. Prince, Michael Jackson, just go right down the list of famous people. There's always something behind the scenes that the public doesn't need to know about. My question is, who is protecting Kevin Durant from himself? Who are the people around Kevin Durant who are helping build this brand? I mean, I read these articles. Oh, they're flying around on private jets. They're getting equity in Silicon Valley companies. Is Kevin Durant benefiting from that, or are the people around Kevin Durant benefiting from that? And when I look at like agents or people who are supposed to represent superstar athletes, they're supposed to make you happy. They're supposed to make you rich beyond your possible dreams. Is Kevin Durant happy right now? No. I think even he would have to admit that he is not as happy as he should be. He's not fulfilled like he should be after winning a title and a finals MVP, given his behavior this summer. Is he as rich as he possibly could be? No. He's the only person who sacrificed any money this summer for Golden State. I mean, significant money. He's the one who had to sacrifice it because he was backed into a corner because he had chosen an organization that had to pay all these other people, and he didn't want to be the bad guy who broke it up, right? So I'm looking at his representation and the people around him, and I've got some serious questions. I mean, if I'm him, I'm thinking, I need to upgrade this squad. I at least need to get a better PR person who can help me put out and avoid some of these situations. And past that, you know, I need to do a thorough accounting of who's making me better off the court. I think that's a real serious question that I haven't seen anybody else raise here this week.
Okay, I have some final thoughts before we move on to the rest of the podcast. Number one, you didn't apologize to me, but I know in your heart that you realize that I was right about KD and the Warriors.
No, these are different issues,
that's good enough
man.
for me.
No,
that's good
man.
enough for me.
No,
it's fine.
No.
Golden State's Otto Porter, Captain Cornball out there.
Get out of here.
It's totally fine. I get it. And number two, I hope that everyone realizes that this is why I worry when you text me hours in advance of the podcast that I'm fired up, coming off the top rope, talking about professionalism. Number three, you're dead on one point where, like, KD absolutely knows how the game is played, and to act like he is a child who just made a mistake and he's just really sensitive, and like it belittles him and his own intelligence to say that like he didn't realize that it was weird to be like popping up in Twitter mentions arguing with strangers. I still don't totally know what, like, he hasn't clarified whether he had burner Twitter accounts, but if he did, that's fucking incredible. And if not, I mean, the Instagram is a little different because I can understand why a famous person would want to have a private Instagram, but by the same token, he was in the comment sections like defending himself on Instagram too. So just a bad look all around. And your point about his representation is also pretty accurate because the reason this summer rubbed me the wrong way is all of this felt so choreographed, and it was sending a weird message. Number one, like he kept coming back to the haters when like there weren't that many people who were like KD's not good and KD's a coward, whatever. Like there just weren't that many people. I was one of the few people who was like, this is not great for the NBA, and it would have been cooler had he gone to Boston. But that aside, like he kept harping on it all summer. Like, do you remember when we were at the Lonzo Summer League game where LeBron showed up?
How could I forget? It was one of the greatest days of my life.
So the ESPYs were happening that night, and there was that like sequence at the ESPYs where I guess Peyton Manning made a joke about KD, and then it panned to him in the crowd looking really mad. And like I remember telling you may not remember this, but I was like, look, this is definitely fake. They're definitely just doing this for like the internet. And it like the internet totally bought it, and it became like a meme for the next 24 hours. And then it came out later. Chris Haynes, our guy, reported that it was agreed upon beforehand and they had like choreographed it. And there's just been a lot of stuff like that where KD is trying to seem really authentic while doing stuff that has been like expertly choreographed by a PR team. And I think that is what kind of makes me roll my eyes. And
look, here's the thing. The difference is you care that he's corny. You care that he's sensitive. I don't. I care that he maintains his status as a professional leader.
Sure.
That is what I care about. That's the difference.
Yeah. Well, I think either way, as far as a choreographed summer goes, this was a real screw up from him. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here. The last thing I'll say is that my favorite part of basketball Twitter this week, and I hope it continues all season, is that anytime someone comes in defending KD, like I'll take an example today, this was in Bomani Jones's mentions, and I saw it this afternoon. The complete lack of empathy for someone who has shown us and directly told us how he's struggling with all of this. It's kind of sad. And then someone responded to that guy saying, "You're not going to fool us again. We know it's you, KD." And I just hope that continues all season long.
Yeah, and it's not – I mean, again, I have plenty of empathy for Kevin Durant. I don't have any tolerance for unprofessional comments about former teammates,
God, shut
former
up.
coaches. And I do think
You're
that
worst.
will leave a lasting stain on his reputation. They're still going to win the title. They're probably still going to win 70 games. He has a chance to be the MVP. I think what bothers him is that it's not the haters. It's the fact that he doesn't have as many people who love him, who are all about KD. And I think, especially when you compare him against guys like LeBron and Steph, where's the KD hive? You know what I mean? Like, where are the people who just ride out for KD? Those people, there's not as many of them as you would expect. And again, it goes back to the representation. You know, he should be 1 or 2 on jersey sales. He should be 1 or 2 on sneaker sales.
It also goes back to going to the Warriors. It's a bigger thing. This is not about the Twitter stuff. Like, he's made choices that have consequences, and he has a really high quality of life out there, and that's awesome. But you can't like have your cake and eat it too.
Well, and I think that he realizes. Finally, I mean, in that article that they put out in San Francisco Magazine, whatever it was, modernluxury.com, I never heard of that.
That's a great article to read if you want to hate everything about Silicon Valley.
Yeah, but there was a moment where he like kind of was struck by like, oh man, what did I do here, right? Or like, what did you get me into? He's kind of telling people around him. And, sometimes it's very possible in that moment he didn't understand the full repercussions. People are telling him, hey, don't worry, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And I think from a basketball legacy standpoint, that is still true. I still completely believe that. Like, he is going to go down as one of the all-time greats. He's going to have a better shot at more accolades in Golden State than he ever would have had anywhere else. They're going to be a dynasty. He's going to be a face of it. That doesn't mean he's going to be loved. And I think that's the part that's missing for him.
Yeah, he'll have more titles than someone like Dirk Nowitzki. He will never have people standing out for him for the rest of their lives the way Dirk does. And that's fine. Like, his life is awesome. Even now, like, even in that San Francisco magazine, I forget the name of it, but I'm sure people can go find it on Twitter. But they talked about KD going to a secret conference with other elite influencers at Google headquarters, or it was like a Google retreat. And I read that and I was like, man, if I was doing crazy Illuminati shit like that, I would not be responding to 16-year-olds on Twitter. And so maybe this is just going to be a wake-up call where he's going to have to like accept that people aren't going to love him, and he gets to just like go continue to live a crazy, awesome life.
And I would hope this is a wake-up call for the people who are close to him as well. There's something missing. He's not happy. Get him happy. Put him in a situation where he's feeling fulfilled. I mean, what is it that's causing him to go to the YouTube comments and tell people about his acne? That is not normal behavior for a 28-year-old multimillionaire brand ambassador. It's just not.
It's not. All right. Well, it's time to move on. I hope everyone realizes that this is how passionate Ben gets when I am right about something. And
get out of here, dude.
We can move on here.
I see nothing.
My favorite story of the week, honest to God, was the return of Coffee Shop Kyrie.
Yes.
And we have email from Joseph who says, just FYI, these are two of Kyrie's quotes verbatim on First Take. 1, I don't really have an ego. I have a presence, an aura about me that's very reality-based. 10 minutes later, he says, when you see a player that has some of the talents that I've been blessed with from my mom and dad, which I thank them every day for meeting in Boston and being able to put me on this earth to be a very, very special individual on the court. And then Joseph says, I feel like this was kind of a mic drop moment for all the Kyrie haters.
Well, I do question his transcripts. I mean, first of all, I appreciate the transcripts. That's above and beyond when you're transcribing like live ESPN interviews for us in openfloormail@gmail.com questions. But
well, it was that good. I wish I searched for a full transcript of the interview because there was some like next level gibberish from Kyrie.
Oh, it was tour de force. But
at one point he used tirade as a verb.
Yeah, you can't do that. But I question the transcript only because he uses the word me and not myself. And I think Kyrie almost always says true. Myself. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure he would say myself don't really have an ego, myself have a presence, an aura about myself that's very reality-based. Like, I'm pretty sure that's how he would say it. Also, very much woke is definitely the name of the coffee shop where Kyrie does his beat poetry. There's no question.
Can I play that? Hold on. Let me see if I can play that. Yeah. We're going to loop this for a couple minutes.
Oh, if you're very much woke, there is no such thing as distraction. Oh, if you're very much woke, there is no such thing as distraction. Oh, if you're very much woke, there is no such thing as distraction. Oh, if you're very much woke, there is no such thing as distraction. Oh, if you're very much woke, there is no such thing as distraction.
Yeah, I mean, everything that I was sort of trying to jab Kyrie for, like I wasn't really trying to take huge swings at his pseudo-intellectualism. I think you called him fake deep. But it seemed like the whole world had a stunning revelation during that interview, didn't it?
It's great. I'm so excited for the year of Kyrie spreading his wings in the media because I think he's really feeling himself right now, and he's liable to say just about anything. And I mean, this is who he is. He's a weirdo, and I, honest to God, sort of did a 180 where like I was rolling my eyes at Kyrie over the summer. But if he's just going to be completely off the reservation, I'm in. Like, give me every coffee shop Kyrie interview on national television.
So who is the comparison throughout? I mean, Marbury, is that where this is headed? You know, like, would it be insane? Like, if you had to bet on one All-Star besides Marbury eating Vaseline on a live stream, are we going to say it's Kyrie at this point?
You know, I saw Celtics Reddit had an idea to crowdfund a trip for Kyrie Irving to go to space next summer, which I think we all need that to happen. What I think is actually going to be really funny about this is the Celtics are so good at tweaking their offense and maximizing what guys do well. Like, Kyrie's probably going to be amazing in that system, and we'll probably average 30 this year. And he's going to do that while also making so many different enemies in the Boston media because he's just so condescending in these interviews, and he's always been this way. And maybe it's just with the media, because I've talked to a couple players who've been like, no, Kyrie's great. Like, we really like Kyrie. But he's just, I don't know. Coffee shop Kyrie, fake deep superhero. Jaylen Brown's going to get in on the action a little bit. He already said Kyrie may very well have a point about the earth being flat. He was joking, but I think like an NBA person reached out when the deal happened and was like, Jaylen is definitely going to be into all of Kyrie's theories, and they're going to be quite a tag team in that Boston locker room. So get excited, man. Like the year of Celtics media availability is going to be great.
I don't like this idea that to show that you're riding with your team superstar that you have to just ignore basic physics. Like, just defense and rebound. You know, my age, back in my day, that's all you had to do is play defense and rebound and move the ball. You didn't have to, deny gravity or, the existence of other planets. I mean, you could just...
Fuck science, go Celtics. Let's go. I was in a public place on Monday. I was in like a cafeteria, and the Kyrie interview had happened like a couple hours ago, and clips were on Twitter, and I was sitting there watching those clips, just dying. Like, it was honestly embarrassing because I was just staring at my phone, cracking up, listening to him lecture Stephen A. Smith about reality, completely ignore. Do you think he should have told LeBron James?
No, I mean, he shouldn't have said it the way that he said it in terms of like, no, I don't have to answer to him, but I don't think he necessarily owed LeBron anything, no.
Yeah, me neither. I think that was the one thing where like people came out hammering him afterwards, and I was like, no, this is hilarious. We don't have to actually get mad about Kyrie. But yes, can't wait for. I don't even really need Celtics games. Just give me more Kyrie interviews. Take me into the coffee shop. But let's move on. We had some top 100 follow-ups here. This one was from Zach, who says, Ben, really enjoy the top 100 list and the accompanying pod. One thing I thought was extremely interesting was the fact that Andrew agreed with you on the top 15, especially given the disparity in the way you two see value and project for the upcoming year. For example, Giannis at number 9. What has he done to earn that number 9 spot? Why is he there above Jimmy Butler and Paul George, let alone Draymond Green, Defensive Player of the Year and two-time NBA champion? Giannis being in the top 10 is absolutely an Andrew Sharp rating. Let's be honest, he's not there yet. Move beyond that. Is Giannis' ceiling even higher than Cat's? Are we sure Towns, who is coming off a ridiculous second half of the 2017 season, isn't going to be better than Giannis this year? What say you, Ben?
I mean, it's really frustrating that anyone would think that you have any influence over the top 100. I mean, it's honestly laughable.
Yeah.
No, when you're looking at the advanced stats, Giannis, top 10 in PER, top 10 in win shares, 3rd in WARP, 18th in real plus minus. I think there's a real discussion to be had about who had more help last season whether it's the Bucks, the Pacers, or the Bulls. I didn't really feel what his argument was there at all, especially when you take Middleton, a very valuable player who a lot of people who don't know a lot about basketball, casual fans, don't appreciate in Chris Middleton. You take him out of there. That's the kind of thing that submarines your playoff positioning and your win-loss record. I mean, his numbers across the board were absolutely insane. And when you're comparing him to some of those other names that you mentioned, you have to look at the age curve, because this is not just about grading last year's season. It's about projecting towards next year. He is the one of those three guys, whether it's George, Butler, or Giannis, who you could say is destined to take a bigger step forward statistically and impact-wise just because of his age. I mean, those other guys are at or near their peaks. And Giannis, we don't really have any idea what his peak could be. So some of it's a projection going forward a little bit, but also I think the emailer was underrating Giannis's total body of work last year. He was an absolute stud on both ends. Translated to the impact stats, he just didn't have a ton of help.
Yeah, I thought the emailer, it's interesting because of the top 15, which I mostly agreed with, Giannis was the one that jumped out at me the most, where I was like, I don't know if he is that good. I don't know if he belongs in the top 10 at this point in his career. Granted, all of these rankings are meaningless, and people take them way too seriously. But if you're looking at the top 15, like the top 6, there's very little separation, and then 7 through 15, there's very little separation. So I think we shouldn't read too much into him being above like Jimmy Butler and Paul George. But I do just in terms of Giannis individually, I think, first of all, you and Rob felt guilty because you underranked him so badly last year. That's number one.
No emotion comes into it. I mean, we do make course corrections. I will say that.
You are a robot. We know.
Shouldn't we also point out that he was a 2017 All-NBA second-team pick and he made All-Defensive second team? I mean, that's a top 10 type of guy, right? How many guys are on both of those? It would almost be disrespectful to not have him in the top 10, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, look, he's really good. I think you mentioned the PER. I think he grades out really well statistically, in part because his defensive numbers are so good, like blocks, rebounds. He basically checks every box. And Anthony Davis is the same way, where like they are both amazing. I'm not sure they're quite as good as their PER numbers sometimes make them look. But the difference between Giannis and Kat this year is razor thin. Like they're both going to be really good, and they'll be in the mix with. I would have had Jimmy Butler above Giannis and Draymond, just because I think he's kind of a monster that we still overlook. Like the Bulls were so miserable that nobody wanted to watch his games last year, but what he did to get that team to the playoffs was, to me, a little bit more impressive than what Giannis did.
Yeah, it's funny because you were arguing for Paul George over Jimmy Butler for months, and now you've come back around to the other side.
No, I would have traded for Paul George over Jimmy Butler as a second superstar, but whatever.
Yeah. The other thing I'd say about Giannis versus Kat's got a long way to go defensively, and Giannis doesn't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Giannis can guard a lot of different spots. That's one reason why he's above Kat on our rankings. The other thing, too, you mentioned his player efficiency rating. Why does he look so good on the advanced stats? Giannis generates a lot of dunks, a lot of super high percentage looks around the basket, and guess what? He finishes them. I think I'm looking at his shot chart right now. I mean, he shot 71% within 3 feet. I mean, that's just a dunk parade. Those are awesome numbers. That's going to spike your efficiency. Of course, that's negated a little bit by his lack of three-point shot, but this guy creates a lot of high percentage looks. If he had more help, his team's offensive efficiency would certainly be better. We're pretty confident about that.
Okay, let's run through a couple more top 100 questions. From Mathis, he says, I'm a huge fan of your podcast from Germany, and I'm probably the only fan of your podcast from Germany. Probably true. And he asks, what does John Wall have to do next year to crack the top 10? That's another one where, to me, one of these years, Chris Paul is going to fall off, and John Wall is going to take his spot in all of these conversations. And I think if you're looking for someone in the top 10 who's on the way down, it's clearly CP3, and you could like if I were choosing a point guard to have this year, I would probably take Wall over CP3.
Man, I have to agree with you. It's not fun. I would still take CP for this year, but like
this is the podcast of Sharp being right.
Oh, get out of here! But on this one, in terms of just this coming year, I'd still take CP3. But who is going to replace Chris? I think it's John Wall. You know, John Wall has this tendency of like preemptively giving himself titles that he hasn't really earned. Like this summer, his favorite was, I'm the best two-way point guard. No, he's not.
Dude,
but
that was such a
soon.
bad look. Talk about somebody getting bad advice. Although Wall, to his credit, he's not getting any advice, and he just sort of is a straight shooter no matter what, sometimes to his own detriment. But he should not have come out, and because that's like the type of fake crown that the Hawks would give themselves, like the best two-way. And like nobody gives a shit about two-way point guards, and his defense is not even that great.
Well, we can just call him John Appleseed Wall because he's planting the seeds, okay? He's getting us thinking about him as, in the future as being this best two-way guy, but he does need to step up defensively. The other obvious answer here, and I'm sure the emailer knows this one already all the way over in Germany, but if he comes back with a league average three-point shot and he's hitting it off the dribble and that is, a big new dimension to their offense, then he's right there. Then there's not a lot to nitpick with him. We just haven't seen that, and it's been a while. We've been waiting.
John Appleseed Wall, you're great at coming up with nicknames that are so corny they make me physically cringe, and then I eventually come around. Maybe we can get John Appleseed to catch on this year. Keep it with the Wiz though. Sir Ah says Draymond top 10. If the Wiz won 49 games with Markieff at the 4, how many would they win with Draymond at the 4? Likewise, how much better is Portland if they have Draymond with Lillard, CJ, and the Bosnian Beast instead of Al-Farouq Aminu? What do you think?
I think both teams are probably improving by, for Washington, I'd say like 8, 9, 10 wins better with Draymond. I think that the defensive upgrade there, the flexibility they'd have in terms of being able to take Gortat off the court, really spreading things out, I think would be noticeable. And then with Portland, their 3-4 position was just an absolute train wreck last year, and their 5 position wasn't any better until Nurkic got there. So again, I think you're talking about a team, if they just add Draymond, that is a team that should probably win the Northwest Division. And to me, that could be a 3 or 4 seed in the West. So I don't know. The standard's higher in the West because you've got some teams that are locked in there playing at a really, really high level that have already sort of established themselves. But in the Eastern Conference, if you give Draymond to the Wizards, to me, they're a top 2 seed. Just write it in.
Yeah, I almost want to say that they would win the East with Draymond in there just because he's so good defensively and could bother LeBron. But I come back to this all the time. Like, it would be I love the Warriors together, but it's so hard to like gauge their real value because they fit so perfectly together. And like, I hope that at some point, first of all, I hope we don't have to sit through another 6 Warriors titles, but I hope that at some point they do break up. And so we get to see like how good Klay would be on his own, because we got another question asking about whether he's being held back, how good Draymond would be on his own, because I think that they are all kind of maybe undervalued at this point, although Draymond is not any better than the 10th best player in the league and might be a little overvalued if that's where we're putting him. But like, they're all really, really good, and right now the Warriors are so dominant that it's hard to appreciate them. And I don't know. I hope that at some point we get to see, because like, Klay is fun doing what he's doing now. It would be a lot of fun to see how he responds if he had to score 25 a game every night.
No, I hear you. The only thing I lost you for a second there, you kept saying overvalued and undervalued. Andrew, we have the top 100. We're valued. Like, I don't know how many times I have to repeat this to you. We have this right. We're right.
The only metric we need. All right, next question is from Liam. He says, does the signing of Diamond Stone mean anything significant for one of the Bulls' incumbent big men, or is it just another example of the cheap Bulls peddling us more horseshit? Listen, the signing of Diamond Stone is definitely a game changer for the Chicago Bulls. But no. Look, I am really excited. The only reason I included this is because I'm really excited for a year's worth of just angsty Bulls fans. I think they're a great fan base, and they're all ready to just lose it this year. And like they've been pushed so far over the last 10 years or so, dating back to when they like gave Osik away. There've been so many mistakes along the way, and I love a good angsty fan base because it reminds me of how it used to be with the Wizards fans and Randy Whitman and Ernie Grunfeld, and Wizards still have Ernie Grunfeld. But it's going to be a fun year of like just Chicago fans losing their mind.
I'm glad you said that because it reminded me almost like, you know how they do the season ticket holder parties at the beginning of the season where you can come to the stadium and maybe you pick out your seats and you get a tour of the locker room and they give you some gear and stuff and they try to get you off in the right mentality. I mean, the Bulls fans are as jaded as it gets. I mean, the ones who actually are paying attention. And so they sort of had their season ticket holder party with the hiring of Doug Collins. It was like a perfect opportunity for them to all just flip out about how backwards and navel-gazing their front office has been over the last 5 years. Like they're bringing Doug Collins back for like the 46th rodeo. So that was a nice little season ticket party moment for them. And then the other thing was, when we were in New York and you and I were, we were kind of, hobnobbing with the fashion elite at Fashion Week. I mean, we were at Barney's for that Russell Westbrook event, totally fitting in naturally. I mean, nobody was questioning why we were there.
It was seamless.
But when we were there, we ran into Russ Bankston, who is one of the biggest Bulls fans I know, sneaker god Russ Bankston from Complex. I don't know if you saw his breakup letter to the Bulls this week, but it was phenomenal. It was very, very heartfelt. There was multiple daggers. And
that's
again,
awesome. No, I completely missed that.
We're still a week before Media Day, so that's not a good sign.
Yeah, and to put a more coherent spin on it than I did earlier, I guess what I'm trying to say is there are fan bases like the Celtics, like the Spurs, like I guess the Heat would probably fall into this category, who believe that things are going to work out and trust the people in charge and are just like they put the team first and trust the team implicitly, and those fans are so annoying. And I think the fans that I love most are the ones who are miserable and pissed off and are like, this is a waste of my time. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I've always loved those fans. Knicks fans are really like, they've perfected this over the years, but Bulls fans are on the way.
For sure. I mean, you can always just go to the SB Nation blog and then look in the comment section of people's signature files. And if it says like, in Pritchard we trust, then like the fan base is like still behind. But no one has ever signed off an internet message board with in Gar we trust. That's never happened.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on. Next question. This is from Thaddeus. He says, catching up on pods and listening to the lottery reform debate, and was surprised to hear Ben Golliver hates the wheel. He's calling it complicated. How is the analytics numbers guy confused about a wheel? It only takes an hour to explain if you're a moron. Here's the explanation. Every team knows their draft picks for the next 30 years, or potentially forever. Done. End of explanation. What do you think?
Well, Thaddeus, you tried. You tried to call me a moron, and you tried to get up on a high horse higher than mine. But alas, you kind of failed because you forgot about the well that always goes along with the wheel. Because first of all, we have years worth of future draft picks that have already been traded or already been agreed to in trade. What do we do with that? Well, we just start the wheel after. Okay. Well, Adam Silver is making a lot of noise about expansion. What do we do with the wheel if we add a 31st team or a 32nd team? How does that recalculate this, this draft pick formula? Well, we have to, it's just a lot more complicated than you want to believe it is, or that you just tried to sell us that it was. And it really does not make any sense. What do you do if the Golden State Warriors under your wheel with 4 All-Stars, just randomly the formula comes up that they get the number 1 pick? You want to have Bagley or any of these other guys go to that team? Is that good for competitive balance? Well, sorry. It's not as simple as you're trying to sell it.
You are in peak condition today. I'm really proud of you. My take on the wheel is I don't know if this makes me a moron or lazy, but I don't totally understand it. Haven't really taken the time to read much about it. I would say as far as lottery reform, I don't think it's super necessary. I think that what the NBA is proposing and will probably pass next week, in which case we'll talk more about it, only shifts the area of the lottery where there's going to be incentive to tank, and I don't think that's super healthy. But if we're looking to fix this problem, I think blowing up the draft is pretty appealing to me, and I think it would end up being really entertaining following like draft free agency or rookie free agency every June before real free agency in July. But beyond that, I don't think we need a dramatic solution. Like, things are mostly working, and the NBA is healthier when there's not more than 7 or 8 really good teams.
Let me just summarize. So you don't think we should have a dramatic solution, but we should just blow up the draft and have rookie free agency. That's what you said?
No, I think if we're going for a real solution, blowing up the draft is the only thing that really moves the needle and doesn't create more problems. And it would allow a team like Orlando to say, like, I don't know how great next year's rookies are. Like, the hype machine is starting a little bit too early for my taste because, you know, Marvin Bagley's played at like 6 high schools in the last 3 years. I don't know about Michael Porter Jr., but it would allow a team like Orlando to pay like $40 million to Luka Doncic to try to get him into the fold, which is cool. Like, that would be pretty interesting to see which rookies like teams just go all in on, and you could have a separate cap for rookies, and teams that don't spend it all in one year they could roll that cash over to the next year. Like, it would be pretty fun to follow and would fit well with like how obsessive the NBA internet has become.
Yeah, I am picturing the worst GMs making even worse mistakes.
That's a good point. Good counter.
Like, I'm trying to imagine how much money Phoenix would have thrown at Dragon Bender under this scenario a couple years ago. It's like the only thing worse than Dragon Bender is $125 million Dragon Bender.
That's a great point. Oh, but see, that would be fun to follow.
It would be fun. I mean, it would make our jobs a lot better in terms of just like ripping front offices. I mean, there'd be more fodder. There's no question.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the draft, I love the draft, and the draft is already fun, but this would take it up another level. But speaking of bad GMs, next question. This is from Sean. He says, you talked about how it should be a when, not if, Anthony Davis leaves the Big Easy, but you missed the follow-up thought. When this happens, how long until the Pelicans franchise moves to Seattle? What do you think?
Well, that's dark. I hate trying to steal anyone's fan base, like, you know, franchise fan base, any of that. I don't really like to go there. I think that's a little below the belt. There was an article this week that was sort of like trying to hype up their season ticket sales staff about how they had the highest percentage of season ticket holder satisfaction. And I mean, even though they're like a bottom 5 home attendance thing, so they're trying to pull out all the stops down there in New Orleans. Like, they're trying to get their stories out. They're trying to build that positive momentum, and I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah.
So if they trade Davis, what does that franchise look like? I mean, the fan base would depart in droves, right? I mean, is that basically a guarantee if you lose that guy? I mean, if you're not getting another star back for him.
It's hard to say. I've thought about it a lot because I think this is going to impact when he's actually traded, because I think there's another way to look at it where if they sold the team and like the ownership situation down there has been up in the air for like the last 4 years, and it's too hard to follow because there's so many different like whispers about it. But if they sold the team and to somebody who intended to keep them in New Orleans, my approach as the new owner would be to say, look, we don't really have fans now, so we're not going to worry too much about like alienating anybody because like we're already bottom 5 in attendance every year. and I would try to restart, trade Anthony Davis as soon as possible. But I just think that most people won't look at it that way and are going to be terrified of trading Anthony Davis. And it's a factor to consider, especially as a team like the Celtics is like eyeing him. The Pelicans may wait until the very last second to do anything with him because that's sort of like the last resort. And there's a good argument to be made that like losing him is going to cause people to look around and say like, why do we even need a basketball team in New Orleans? And New Orleans is one of the best cities in the country and the world, but maybe we don't need a basketball team there. Maybe we could just do All-Star Weekend down there.
I think there's one man who's cut out to trade Anthony Davis. I think it's Sam Hinkie. I think we need Sam Hinkie to replace Dell Demps here next summer.
Sam!
Once everything goes wrong, I mean, Sam will break out the very analytical, the cold approach. He won't rely on emotions. And he will just have a fire sale to end all fire sales. The NBA will have to redo the lottery reform like 6 different times after he trades Anthony Davis because they're going to hit new levels of rock bottom. I think that's how it should go. That's how I would do it.
Sure. That's definitely when you're looking to drive up local popularity of your team, hire Sam Hinkie, and the rest is history.
And by the way, though, I mean, you're trying to say, oh, it's so impossible to trade Anthony Davis. I mean, we just watched the Hawks let a similar caliber superstar and Paul Millsap walk for free this summer. So nothing's impossible with New Orleans.
Yeah,
and Anthony
well,
Davis.
That's the case for Anthony Davis to the Celtics is that look, if the Pelicans are smart, they'll do that, and the question is whether they're going to be smart, but. 2 more questions. Nicholas from Malaysia says, who do you think is the better point guard for the Sixers, Fultz or Simmons? According to one interview, Simmons highlighted that the coach had given him the green light to go for the one.
Simmons.
What do you think?
Simmons is going to be their point guard.
I think first of all, is it impossible to have an opinion about 2 guys who have never played a game before? And the only real takes here are, one, that it's going to be a mess. And people, it's one reason to short Sixers stock this season is that both those guys kind of think they're the point guard, and both are super raw, and they're just going to have to figure it out on the fly. The other thing I would say is it's really weird that Simmons is so obsessed. We've talked about guys getting like weird branding advice. Simmons really wants to be called a point guard, and I don't totally get it. He's more of the Draymond passer than like a true point. He's not Magic Johnson.
Oh, come on.
There's
a difference between. There's a wide gap between Draymond and Magic Johnson. He's closer to Magic Johnson than Draymond.
But I'm just saying, within an offense, he's going to be passing from like the high post. I don't think the offense is going to be in a great place if he's legitimately like walking the ball up every possession.
No, I hear you. You just sound kind of pessimistic about this. I was talking to these 2 Sixers podcasters with rhyming names. They sound a lot higher on it to me.
Yeah, look, you betrayed me and went on the rights to Ricky Sanchez, who still refused to have me on. And I was legitimately pissed off that none of the 3 of you told me that was going to happen. But people can go to Ben's Twitter to listen to it.
For the record, I was sworn to secrecy. They said I couldn't come on unless I didn't tell you. I don't really care about your guys' little drama, so I was like, sure, whatever. But what I found very interesting about this was that I went on there. I didn't get a text message from you for like 3 days. Actually, you sent one. You said, I'm so disgusted with you, Golliver. That was it. I didn't hear from you for 3 days. But then over the course of the next 3 days, we got progressively angrier emails from what I'm presuming were your burner accounts, basically saying that I was too mean to you, that I was way too harsh on the Top 100 podcast. So I kind of think you just went to your Google account alt IDs to kind of channel your frustration with me. Is that what happened?
No. Do you want to read some of the mean emails? I have one here.
Please do.
Okay. First of all, I wasn't going to include them. Mark says, Ben, you're basically impugning Andrew's basic qualifications as a basketball expert, and it's becoming a real problem. When you imply that Andrew is a casual fan, which you did in this episode, and you imply he doesn't watch games, etc., it suggests not that you disagree on the merits, but that he doesn't even belong on the podcast. So Argue away, Ben, but you need to stick to the facts and stop undercutting the basic value of your co-host.
Well, look, I mean, casual fan sharp, it's sort of like Crooked Hillary. I mean, it's just a branding exercise, you know? And I would just say that everyone knows you're the reason why this podcast works, Andrew. I don't know how many times I have to say that in various mediums for the fans to kind of understand that it's not as serious as they think it is. But thank you for the feedback, Mark. I'm trying to cool off a little bit.
No, you're not doing a good job. I think you lectured Kevin Durant for literally 30 minutes at the start of the podcast.
Look, if you do anything as unprofessional as Kevin Durant, I'm coming back at you. So I'm trying to be nice, but just keep it real.
All right. Well, just for the record, given the 5 to 10 emails we got worrying about me after the Top 100 podcast, I am fine. And I hope that you all know that anytime Ben is belittling me or lecturing me about the way basketball works, just know that I really do think that I understand basketball on a deeper level than he does, and he has no idea what he's talking about, and he's missing the forest from the trees most of the time when he's talking about basketball. And so I'm not bothered by any of it. I'm just like, yo, this is cool. Look at this guy. He can read the PER stats. That's awesome.
Ignorance really is bliss. I mean, I think if you're looking for a lesson from this podcast, that's it.
All right. And Sam says, I don't mean to sound like your mom or anything, but why do you guys feel like it's worth it for Andrew to throw out a 4-letter word a few times each podcast? I really do. We get an email every week complaining about profanity, and I'm sorry. I'm trying to work on it. It's just the way I think.
No, you can't help it, man. I'm sorry. I push you, especially when we're in the studio together. You have no chance of restraining. I mean, it just comes foaming out of your mouth.
All right. A couple more emails here. We got from Jashura. He says he sent you a DM saying, "Hey, idiot, DeMar DeRozan is top 10. Me and my friend are going to come beat you up. Tell Rob to watch his back as well."
Look, Jay Shura, I mean, you can threaten violence to me, but you cannot threaten Rob Mahoney with violence. I will not stand for that. And also, sorry, buddy, but you only had the second best angry DeRozan DM because we had someone named Roxy who has DM'd me now, I think 3 times ever, every single one of them after our most recent Top 100, just to say that I effed it up again. And so she was in my DMs right on schedule to let me know that again.
Yeah, I think you should... You're gauging the success of the Top 100 all wrong, and you should be measuring the amount of or the number of physical violence threats that you get every year. And
come on.
I feel like
Andrew, I have integrity. We're trying to get the best list possible. If I was trying to do the trolliest list, it would look a lot different. It would look a lot like the column you wrote on Friday about the mistakes of our Top 100.
I don't know. I just feel like you could have trolled a little bit harder. It'd be more fun for everybody. Victor says, "Hey guys, I sat through the whole Top 100 pod, and the whole time I was wondering, where would Hoodie Mello rank in the Top 100? I feel like Hoodie Mello is his high usage alter ego, better scorer, more efficient, and better usage than regular Mello. What do you think of Hoodie Mello as a phenomenon?"
I mean, I'm humorless. I don't believe in internet memes. I only believe in 82 game sample sizes. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, Hoodie Mello is basically 27-year-old Mello, right? I mean, isn't that sort of what Hoodie Mello is?
Sure, yeah.
Imagine age hadn't caught up to him, so Hoodie Mello is probably a top 12 player.
And he is that way because the hoodie hides some of the flab that he's accrued over the years.
It's slimming.
Makes him look a little springier, and I think it's a great look for him, number one. And I actually, earlier this week, was thinking through his potential trade destinations as which city is most hoodie friendly. And Houston and New Orleans are really not hoodie friendly. So I think those need to go down the list. But really, once you start thinking through that, there's no better hoodie city in America than Portland.
No, and Blazers fans have really seized on that as the main reason why the trade should happen. So they're on the same wavelength as you. There's no question. Maybe he should get a vertically striped hoodie and he could really be slim. Like maybe he's cracking the top 5.
Yo, when I played sports, I used to have to do that. Not with stripes or anything, but like white people in all black shoes look like even slower than they already are. So I would never let myself buy all like the Jordan the Space Jams were out for me because I was like, nope, I'll look way too slow if I own those.
Yeah, well, you're not in the top 100, so you don't have to worry about it.
me and Carmelo Anthony, not so different after all. All right, final question from Joseph. He says, while I was in LA this weekend, I drove by Swaggy P walking his dog in Studio City with a new lady on his arm. And then, sure enough, cosmically, when I flew back to NYC Sunday afternoon, D'Angelo Russell was on my flight, presumably to begin life as a net. It leads to a number of questions, like, is there some sort of great sync and eternal link between Swaggy and D'Angelo, such that anyone who sees one will see the other within 24 hours? Kind of like watching the Ring tape and then having that girl crawl out of the well and come after you. I think if anyone is the girl in that scenario, it would be Swaggy and not D'Angelo. Next question was the image of Swaggy and a new woman smiling in the sunshine amongst beautiful flora, notably lacking in azaleas, as D'Angelo exited his world, a mystical sign that Swaggy's love life can only blossom when D'Angelo's gone? And most importantly, why did the Nets make D'Angelo Russell fly commercial?
Well,
do you have any sort of response?
I mean, the last one's obvious. I mean, he's not a charter point guard. I mean, he's not a G5, not a G6 type. I mean, no.
I don't know, though. I think if you're expecting him to be a star, you got to invest early.
I don't know. I don't see G5 potential in D'Angelo ever. But no,
That's true.
My only real take on this, I mean, that was a really convoluted email. You lost me about 3/4 of the way through, and you did a fine job.
It was a
reading
great
it.
email. It was a great email.
It was a great email. It was on a different level. I think that I should mention, I was doing my scouting report calls this week, breaking down all the different teams, and we got to the Warriors. And I'm expecting, complimentary, they're going to win 70. They're going to probably be the best team in the league. Like all the nice things that people always say about the Warriors, great culture. And instead, the scout just was railing on Nick Young for like 10 minutes. And I had to bring him back. And I was like, no. Like, they don't even need him. Like, he's not going to have to play if he's as bad as you think he's going to be. Like, they'll just play Macaw. They're good. And he's like, no. Like, this guy's selfish. Like, he's going to ruin everything they've been trying to build. And so that's the Nick Young.
That's awesome.
That's the other side of Nick Young for you.
My scout last year spent like probably 15 minutes talking about how washed up Dwayne Wade was and how unplayable he was going to be in Chicago. And eventually I had to be like, all right, we got the Wade stuff. We're good. We can move on. And he kept coming back to how bad he and Rondo were going to be. And he wasn't wrong. But yes, the universe is connected between D'Angelo and Swaggy P and all of us, really. Coffee Shop Kyrie and his aura. And it's been a fun week, more fun than I expected it to be in mid-September. And next week, we've got media days. I'm going to be in Philly. So on Tuesday, I will have a report from Sixers Media Day. And then we'll just keep it rolling, We got owners' meetings, probably going to blow up the lottery. Who knows?
Keep it professional. Get some good people around you, Andrew. Those are my final lasting lessons for you guys. openfloormail@gmail.com. 5-star reviews on iTunes. We got a great review from Sir, one of our loyal listeners and emailers. We appreciate that. Guys, be cool like Sir, man. It's not that hard. 5-star reviews. openfloormail@gmail.com. Ben.Golliver on Instagram. Andrew Sharp on Twitter. Man, I'll talk to you.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.